I'm sure you've all heard of the Ronald McDonald House charity, a safe place for families with sick children, right? A place filled with kindness, warmth, and healing. That's what everyone believes. But there's another kind of Ronald McDonald House, one you'll never find on a map. No sign above the door, no cheerful windows, no address. The only way you'll ever see it is if someone takes you there. That's how I found it. I didn't ask to be taken. I didn't even know such a place existed. But when the door closed behind me, when the silence pressed down so hard it felt like my eardrums were splitting, I understood. This wasn't charity. This wasn't kindness. This was something else entirely. And if you ever hear the name whispered in the wrong tone, if someone ever offers you to take you to a Ronald McDonald House you've never heard of, don't go. Don't ever go. Because I went inside. And I'm still not sure I ever came back out. I've never met my real parents. My earliest memories are of caseworkers' offices, the smell of stale coffee, and the sound of ticking clocks while strangers signed papers that decided where I would sleep next. Foster families came and went, each one convinced they could fix me. I was the bad kid, the one who broke rules, the one who couldn't settle down. And every time I proved them right, I was sent away again. A little more baggage in my file, a little more evidence that I was a lost cause. By the time I turned 15, I'd stopped pretending. I carried everything I owned in a backpack: clothes, a few trinkets, and one precious photo album. Inside were pictures of all the families I'd lived with, proof that I'd been somewhere, belonged to someone, even if only for a short while. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The last time I sat across from my caseworker, her face was drawn and tired. A thick brown envelope lay on the table between us, heavy with the weight of my failures. She told me I had two options: military school in Lansing or the Ronald McDonald House. I almost laughed at the absurdity. A halfway home named after a clown? How bad could it be? I didn't think about the way her lips tightened when she said it. I didn't think about how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. I only thought about drill sergeants barking orders at dawn, and decided a clown house couldn't be worse. Dark clouds hung low the day she drove me downtown. Detroit passed by in a blur of gray concrete and neon scars. We pulled up to a windowless building pressed between two warehouses. No sign, no address, nothing to mark it as a place anyone should ever enter. "Here we are," she said. I hesitated, my hand frozen on the door handle. "Are you sure?" She didn't answer, just climbed out and walked ahead. I followed, clutching my backpack strap so tightly my knuckles turned white. The metal doors groaned as they opened. When they closed behind me, the silence was suffocating. Not the kind of silence you get in a library or a church. This was oppressive, heavy, like something was listening. A receptionist sat behind a glass window at the far end of the lobby. At first I thought she was just a nurse in white. Then she turned and my stomach lurched. Her face was painted in thick white grease paint, her mouth smeared red in a too-wide grin. Curly red hair framed her head, unmistakable. Ronald McDonald. She smiled at me through the glass, but her eyes weren't kind. They were hungry. I wanted to run then. I should have run, but I didn't. The sound hit me first, a sharp metallic slam echoing across the lobby. I flinched, spinning toward a door in the far corner. It had swung open on its own. No one stood there, yet light spilled from within, stretching long, jagged shadows across the floor. And from those shadows came laughter. High-pitched, distorted, almost inhuman. I froze, clutching my backpack like it could protect me. My caseworker gave my shoulder one last pat, her smile brittle. "Don't worry, honey. You'll feel right at home here." Then she turned and left through the metal doors. I lunged after her, pounding the steel with my fists. "Wait! Don't leave me here!" My screams bounced off the walls, swallowed by the oppressive silence.
When I spun back, the nurse was still watching me through the glass. Her grin had stretched wider, her eyes glinting with something malicious. Behind her, figures began to gather. More nurses, more clowns. Red wigs, painted smiles, white gowns. Their laughter seeped through the glass like poison, growing louder with every passing second. And then I saw it. 2 of them rolling a gurney into the lobby, restraints dangling from the sides, metal gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Others followed, carrying scalpels, needles, gleaming surgical tools. Their grins never changed. "No! Stay away from me!" My voice cracked, desperate, useless. They didn't stop. Cold hands clamped down on my arms. I thrashed, kicked, screamed, but there were too many of them. Their laughter rose in unison, a manic chorus that drilled into my skull. They slammed me onto the gurney, straps tightening across my wrists and ankles. The more I struggled, the tighter they pulled, until I could barely breathe. One of them leaned down, the rubber smell of gloves filling my nose. His painted mouth hovered inches from my face. We love to see you smile," he whispered, before 2 fingers hooked into the corners of my lips, stretching them into a grotesque grin as tears spilled down my cheeks. A needle pierced my arm. The world blurred, laughter distorted, slowed, warped into a dying record as the darkness swallowed me whole. And when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the lobby anymore. I woke to a stabbing brightness. Fluorescent lights burned my eyes until they watered. My body felt heavy, weak, like my veins had been filled with lead. When I finally managed to sit up, the room came into focus. Tall white walls, no windows, a single drain in the corner, a door with no handle on the inside, and beside that door, my backpack. Relief hit me, short and sharp. I crawled across the cold floor, every muscle trembling. I unzipped the bag with shaking hands, searching for something, anything that proved I still existed. But when I pulled out the photo album, my heart turned to ice. The pictures were gone. In their place were photographs I'd never seen before. Crime scenes, faces I recognized, foster parents, siblings, people who once welcomed me into their homes. their bodies mangled, sprawled across familiar living rooms and kitchens, blood soaking into carpets I had played on. I flipped faster and faster, my breath ragged, my stomach churning, and then I saw her, my caseworker, first brushing her teeth in the mirror, then turning to the camera, her face twisted in horror. The final photo showed her broken body in a bathtub, crimson water spilling over the edge. On the back cover, 3 words were scrawled in thick black ink: "You never existed." I gagged, retching into the drain, bile burning my throat. They were erasing me, erasing everyone who had ever known me. I had to get out. My hands fumbled through the front pocket of the backpack until I felt them, thin, sharp, hidden where no one would notice. Lockpicks, my only secret. I pressed my ear against the door, waiting. Footsteps echoed, then faded. Heart pounding, I slipped the pick into the lock. It clicked open faster than I expected. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, glowing under buzzing lights. The air smelled of antiseptic and rot. Behind some doors I heard muffled cries, children sobbing, screams choked into silence. I wanted to open them, to help, but fear pressed me forward. Then I saw it. 2 wide white doors, letters scrawled across them in thin black paint. Play Place. The shrill laughter seeped from behind them, overlapping with the screams of children. I froze, my stomach twisting. Whatever was happening inside, I didn't want to see it. I forced myself to move on. A stairwell sign flickered at the end of the hall. I pushed through, slamming the door shut behind me. A red 5 was painted on the concrete wall. 5th floor. I needed the ground. Each step down was agony. My hospital gown clung to my skin, damp with sweat. The stairwell echoed with every movement, magnified into thunder. Then came another sound. Laughter. Faint at first, then swelling, bouncing off the concrete as if it came from everywhere at once. They were hunting me.
By the time I reached the 1st floor, my lungs burned. I pushed the door open to another hallway. This one was quieter. Too quiet. No screams, only the mechanical buzz of lights. At the end of the hall, a set of double doors stood marked with a red cross. I told myself not to look, not to open it, but something pulled me closer. I pressed my ear to the cold metal, a steady beeping, a rhythmic pulse, like machinery. The door wasn't locked. Inside was a cavernous chamber. Rows of white wooden crosses dangled from the ceiling, each one strung with tubes that fed into a massive steel cylinder. And on those crosses, children, dozens of them, heads slumped, eyes half closed, wrists pierced by needles that siphoned their blood. Some twitched faintly, but most hung limp, silent. My stomach lurched, and I vomited onto the floor. The stench of iron, antiseptic, and death filled my nose. Then the alarms began to scream. I stumbled back into the hall, slamming the doors shut. Red lights pulsed overhead, bathing the walls in blood. Their laughter followed, growing closer, faster. I ran. My bare feet slapped against the tile. The stairwell door loomed, but when I wrenched it open, the sound hit me like a wall. Dozens of voices cackling from above, echoing down the stairwell. I bolted downward, deeper and deeper, until the stairs spat me into a basement. The air was foul. Rot and decay clung to every breath. Dim bulbs flickered every few feet, barely illuminating the tunnels ahead. Alcoves lined the walls, filled with blackened corpses left to rot. Their faces frozen in twisted grins, skin shriveled against bone. I gagged, but kept running, the pounding of feet behind me driving me forward.
Shadows lunged at the edge of the light. Then, salvation. A ladder at the tunnel's end, stretching up into darkness. I scrambled upward, nails scraping rusted rungs. Laughter exploded below me. Closer, closer. A blade slashed my ankle, hot blood spilling down my foot. I screamed, heaving against the rusted cover above. With a final desperate shove, it broke open. Cold rain poured onto my face. I hauled myself onto the asphalt and slammed the cover shut, pressing my weight against it as their hands pounded from below. For a long time, I just lay there, trembling in the storm. When I finally rose, I saw the world around me. Detroit, but not the Detroit I knew. Abandoned buildings, shattered windows, empty streets. Not a car, not a person. Only silence, broken by distant thunder. A soggy newspaper clung to the pavement. I peeled it up, squinting through the rain. The date smeared but visible. July 13th, 1992. My stomach turned to ice. I wandered, calling for help. No one answered. Every shadow seemed to mock me with laughter. My hospital gown clung to my skin, soaked and freezing. Then I saw it, a glow in the distance. Golden arches. A McDonald's. The windows were shattered, the building dark except for the giant yellow M blazing against the storm. I limped inside. The decor was frozen in time, white booths, red and yellow tiles, everything like it was 30 years ago. The air reeked of mildew. On the counter sat a black laptop. New, untouched by decay. I knew what it wanted from me. So I sat outside, rain dripping onto the keys, beside the grinning statue of Ronald with his arms stretched out like a friend. I opened the laptop, began to type. And every so often, I feel it, the statue shifting, its painted smile bending closer, closer, as laughter stirs at the edge of my mind. The rain poured harder, drumming against the cracked pavement, but the laptop keys clicked beneath my fingers as if my story had to be written, forced from me by something unseen. Every word I typed felt less like mine and more like theirs, as though I was only a mouthpiece. That's when I heard it. The laughter. Not distant, not muffled, but right behind me. I froze. My hands hovered above the keyboard, trembling. Slowly I turned. The statue was no longer a statue. Ronald's painted eyes rolled to meet mine, glowing faintly red in the stormlight. His plastic grin cracked wider, splitting unnaturally, as if his face was made of flesh. His arm, once frozen in welcome, shifted closer, the plastic squealing as it bent. "No," I whispered, stumbling to my feet. The laptop clattered to the wet concrete, the screen still glowing. The glass windows of the McDonald's exploded inward, shards raining down as the nurses poured through, white dresses streaked with blood, clown paint smeared into grotesque masks, scalpels glinting in their hands. Their laughter was a chorus, manic, defacing, drowning out the storm.
I ran. My bare feet slapped against the wet pavement, blood from my ankle mixing with rain. The golden arches loomed above me like a gateway to hell as they closed in from every side. Ronald stepped off the bench. His shoes hit the ground with a hollow thud.
He was taller now, his limbs stretching, his head cocked unnaturally as he followed. The painted smile never wavered. I ducked into the playground tubes, scrambling through the wet plastic tunnels like a trapped rat. Their hands reached inside, grabbing, clawing. Laughter echoed from every direction, bouncing through the pipes until I couldn't tell where they were. At the end of the tunnel, a face appeared. White paint, red grin, needle gleaming. I screamed and kicked, thrashing backward, but another pair of hands caught my ankles. I was yanked down, tumbling out onto the asphalt. A dozen of them swarmed me, pressing me flat to the ground. Their cold hands pinned my wrists, my chest, my throat. And then Ronald himself leaned down, his shadow covering me. The rain blurred his face, but I saw it. Skin peeling at the seams, plastic giving way to something raw and pulsing beneath. His voice was a guttural hiss, thick with hunger. Smile for me. I thrashed, my throat raw from screaming, but his gloved fingers forced my lips apart, stretching them until my cheeks burned. The nurses cheered, their laughter reaching a pitch fever. The last thing I saw was the needle descending toward my eye. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the cell. The walls loomed white and endless, claw marks etched deep into the paint. The drain in the corner gurgled softly, carrying away whatever the others had left behind. My body shook with fever. My wrists bore fresh bruises where the straps had dug into me, and I was no longer in my clothes. Just that same yellow gown, Ronald's grinning face patterned across the fabric like a curse. My backpack sat by the door again, waiting. I crawled to it on my hands and knees. The zipper screeched as I opened it, though I already knew what I would find. The album. Always the album. This time the pictures were different. Grainy shots of me in the tunnels, my face contorted in terror as the clowns dragged me. A picture of me lying on the wet asphalt, screaming up at the storm. A picture of me even now, huddled in the corner of the cell with the album in my lap. I slammed it shut, my breath hitching. Footsteps echoed outside the door, slow, deliberate. I pressed my ear to the cold metal and heard it. Laughter, low and cruel, building just beyond the threshold. I knew then the truth. There was no leaving, no escape. The house had me now, and it would keep me. And the worst part? I couldn't tell anymore if I was still alive, or if I'd already become another smiling face on their wall. That's where my story ends, at least the part I can still tell. The rest is laughter echoing through the walls, footsteps in the halls, shadows that never stop moving. Maybe you don't believe me. Maybe you'll think this is just another ghost story told by a broken kid. But if you ever hear the name whispered, Ronald McDonald House, don't ask questions. Don't follow. Because once you step inside, you're already gone. And if you're listening to this now, maybe it means I never made it out at all. So tell me, are you sure you're alone?